Al-Qaeda, an overview. The 9/11 attack. At the time of the attack on the World Trade Center, Osama bin Laden was not a central person in Afghanistan, the Middle East, or North Africa. He was banned from his country of birth and had fled afar to the northwestern corner of Afghanistan. 9/11 further weakened bin Laden and Al-Qaeda's position. All Muslim political leaders condemned his action, apart from Saddam Hussein, although he was careful to offer sympathy to the victims. Religious leaders also condemned the attack. Bin Laden's ideological dream of unifying the Muslim community into a caliphate seemed further away than ever. The aftermath of 9/11. Although Al-Qaeda had been left isolated by the regimes and the major non-state actors in the Middle East and North Africa, the attack on the World Trade Center had an impact on the growth of Al-Qaeda. The group instantly became the focus of worldwide political concern and mass media attention. A range of radical individuals and isolated political groups proclaimed affiliation with Al-Qaeda in order to gain reputation. This happened despite the fact that bin Laden only claimed responsibility for the 9/11 attack as late as 2004. In 2001 and 2003, when the war on terror was launched in Afghanistan and Iraq, the Islamist extremist movement was further consolidated. The presence of an outside aggressor provided a common enemy people could team up against. It increased the appeal for individuals to join radical organizations, and it also provided a unifier for extremist groups. It made it easier to ignore their differences. It has become evident that a number of terrorist groups from across the region adopted the name Al-Qaeda. The Algerian militant group GSPC became Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb. Various movements in Saudi Arabia and Yemen merged into Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, and Al-Shabaab became Al-Qaeda in Somalia. Al-Qaeda became a franchise of scattered member groups. The members benefited from their link to Al-Qaeda by getting increased public attention, recruits, training, and funding. In return, the alliance made Al-Qaeda appear more powerful. When the franchises carried out violent attacks, they now attributed them to Al-Qaeda, and they would be reported as such in the media, despite still being motivated by domestic goals. Here are a few examples. A defector from Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb organized the Amena hostage crisis in Algeria in 2013. The motive was pressurizing France to cease military action in northern Mali. Al-Shabaab carried out the 2013 Westgate shopping mall and the 2015 Garissa University attacks in Kenya. Both were in retaliation for Kenya's military presence in Somalia. Al-Qaeda gave the impression of being a homogenized, well-organized threat, whereas in reality, the Al-Qaeda network was marked by disagreements, both between the parent organization and its members, as well as within the franchises themselves. Impact of the War on Terror. The Western military invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq, the so-called War on Terror, helped bin Laden's anti-Western ideology to penetrate the mainstream population. The Western powers did not have a plan in place for rebuilding the countries following the devastating attacks. As a result, Afghanistan and Iraq, and later on Libya, were left in a power vacuum that destabilized the countries. Security forces, institutions, and infrastructures collapsed, and living standards deteriorated. Bin Laden's anti-Western sentiment gained appeal amongst the many unemployed and dispossessed who had suffered as a result of the wars. It became easy to find recruits for terrorist activities. In the time following the invasions, the two countries spiraled into violence. Suicide bombings became commonplace, and Iraq experienced an upsurge in sectarian friction. The Sunni minority had been protected under the former secular leader Saddam Hussein, but the new Shia leadership suppressed the Sunnis, and tension rose. This is illustrated by the fact that before 2003, no suicide attacks occurred, but by 2010, around 1,000 suicide bombings had reportedly taken place in Iraq. It was those circumstances that allowed the most notable Al-Qaeda franchise, Al-Qaeda in Iraq, later to become Islamic State, to gain a foothold.